Hello and welcome back to Tree of Statism, Good and Evil. Today I want to talk about a subject that I don't know whether or not it has a proper name or if I just invented it. However, I'm going to coin a term in order to make it clear. I'm going to call it Pyrrhic Defeats. I purposefully have tied it with Pyrrhic Victories because I think it is the opposite idea. A Pyrrhic victory is not a concept I have invented. It is a victory that comes at a very, very high cost. The point is that usually very few Pyrrhic victories cause a strategic defeat. If in each battle you lose too much manpower, too many resources, and very, very little is gained, eventually you will run out of resources and out of manpower. The question is then, who loses resources faster, one side or the other, and who will end up in a better position? The key idea here is that a lot of Pyrrhic victories are going to be a lot of tactical victories that cause strategic defeat. A Pyrrhic defeat is going to be one that burns down the resources of the enemy. The point is that after suffering a bunch of Pyrrhic defeats, you will gain a strategic victory. Can Pyrrhic defeats lead to victory? Well, castle building was built on this concept. Castles were built to make it very hard for the enemy to storm. The defenders could much more easily kill the invading army. That is not to say that they would inevitably win, but that the price of storming a castle was very, very high. This is why castles were very rarely stormed. Having these facts on the table meant that the local lord could negotiate better terms. Often, he might surrender but not be displaced. He would continue to own his castle, however, he would have to pay some kind of toll. Often the attackers would start a siege but would not last long enough. They would run out of resources or would have to head home before the siege was over. Sometimes relief armies came to save the day. This made it very hard for the aggressing party to win in a foreign country. Today we have a very interesting battle. We're going to lose this battle. We're going to lose a Pyrrhic defeat. However, this is a good opportunity to learn. We're just going to take a very, very simple tactic. We have a bunch of horse archers, and we're going to let them shoot arrows at the enemy. They're going to shoot their arrows until they run out of arrows. At no point of this battle are we going to try to engage in melee combat. We're going to try to avoid melee combat at all costs, because in melee combat we're going to lose. The situation favors our archery units and our archery fighting style over them, and favors our troops as long as they refrain from melee engagements. When we run out of arrows, first of all you can look down here and see the blue bars. As they empty out, this means that our troops are running out of arrows. As we run out of arrows, we're not going to engage in melee combat. We're going to avoid melee combat. What we're going to do is just retreat and run away and lose the battle. The point here is not to win the battle. The point here is to create a better strategic situation where they have far less troops than they had before, and we have a better situation for the next battle. That means that at the end, we want them to have less troops, and we want the odds to change in our favor. Let's say they outnumber us 2-1 now. We'd like to end this battle outnumbering them 2-1. Here, for example, we see units engaging in melee combat. That's a no-no. Immediately run away. As we continue fast forwarding, there's not going to be any kind of dramatic event, just more arrows flying in all directions. Perhaps here there's going to be a bit of a dramatic event. They like to show us when the general dies. We kind of missed that. We're just going to tell the troops to we're just moving them around to make sure that they're not engaging in melee combat. and close enough to engage in archery. We're starting to see troops running out of arrows. None of them have run out of yet, but this troop is very, very close. Instead of waiting for them to run out, we're just going to tell them to retreat. Here the general died is very irrelevant for the battle. We're going to slow down a little bit. As we see units running out of ammo, we're just going to tell them to retreat. There's no point in waiting for them to be caught in melee combat. Just run away. You shot most of your arrows anyway. Just leave. There's no need to for you to finish your arrows. We're just going to tell the entire army to just leave. There's no point in finishing this battle. We've pretty much won our strategic victory, because despite losing our tactical defeat. As the army leaves, we see that there's a bunch of troops here that have not surrendered, that have not lost yet. Just the troops leaving the battlefield. Not much to discuss. We are going to do one thing that we rarely do on this channel, and that is analyze the numbers. The reason we're going to analyze the numbers, the reason we usually don't analyze the numbers, is that usually victory speaks for itself. However, in this case, we want to discuss the numbers to show you that despite us losing, here, look, we lost. We started off with 1,400 men, 14 and a half. We lost 300 men. We remained with almost 1,200 men, as opposed to our enemy that started with 1,900 men, lost 1,200, almost 1,300 men, and remains with 600. At the beginning of the battle, they outnumbered us about 1.3 to 1. Now we outnumber them about 2 to 1. Why? Because we lost a Pyrrhic defeat. We kind of improved our situation through defeat. And now, if we were to have a second battle, based on the new numbers, you can guess who would win. And I must ask you, what did the enemy gain? The enemy gained nothing of value, that is. So they lost 2/3 of their army and gained open fields, nothing important. In 1566, the Habsburgs fought the Ottomans. The Ottomans wanted to take Vienna, and with an army of 100,000 men. One little town by the name of Zigardvar was raiding supply lines with about 3,000 soldiers, so the Ottomans besieged them. The locals refused to surrender, and so began one of the best Pyrrhic defeats in history. During a month-long battle, the Ottomans broke into the castle. However, the castle was divided into a few parts. So, as they broke in part by part, the defenders withdrew inwards and inwards. In the last part, they had 600 men left. The commander ordered they light a long fuse to the powder magazine. Then they stormed out to face the Ottomans, and were defeated. The Ottomans stormed in to take advantage of the open gates. About that time, the powder magazine blew up and killed about 3,000 Ottoman soldiers. This is one of the first, if not the first, suicide bombing. The result of this long battle was 3,000 dead men that the Habsburgs lost. The Ottomans, on the other hand, lost somewhere between 20 and 30,000 men. Also, the Sultan died, so it created instability inside the Ottoman Empire. The Austrians had time to call up an army, and the Ottomans decided that the campaign should end for the year. The city of Vienna would not be besieged until 1683, more than 100 years later. Some people have called this battle the battle that saved the West, because it was just one hell of a Pyrrhic defeat. After the carnage of World War I, the French built the Maginot Line, under the idea that they could not hold any one position. Gunpowder was too strong, the cannons and the artillery was too much. However, they could make a lot of small fortifications that would help the defenders increase the killing rate. The point was to make a 10-to-1 death rate, favoring the French over the Germans. The French then could counterattack and crush the remaining Germans. The Maginot Line worked and failed. It kept the Germans from pushing through a specific area, so we could say that it worked. On the other hand, for two reasons you could say that it failed. The first reason is that the Germans knew about the Maginot Line and for that reason went a different way. The Germans had to bring out their best engineers in order to find a way to cut through the Ardennes forest. However, once they managed the new engineering feats, they managed to take their tanks through the forest, going around the Maginot Line. Also, this Maginot Line focused France on military defense. A lot of defense spending was put onto defensive weapons rather than attack weapons. What does this mean? This means that they had all the infrastructure behind the Maginot Line to keep the Maginot Line functioning. Hospitals, munition lockers, whatever they needed, and train lines leading directly to the front. However, when they had the opportunity to attack the Germans in the beginning of World War II, because the Germans invaded Poland, they were very reluctant to leave their fortified positions. This was also a kind of logical idea after you spent so much money on your defensive fortifications and you did not spend enough money on tanks, on trucks, on all the things that would help you push into enemy territory, because they were expecting to repel an invasion coming from the other direction. It should be noted that death rates are not universally a good measure for victory or defeat. Some leaders in some states may say the price was worth it. However, as we approach demographic decline in most of the advanced world, it is most likely going to be a very, very telling sign. However, despite this not being always a good measurement for a victory and defeat on the strategic level, it is always a good measurement for efficiency of a tactic on the tactical level. A victory on either side can be called Pyrrhic if the cost was too high. Despite what a state might say, it can celebrate its victory day and night. Pyrrhic victories are a sign of military rot, some kind of problem in the machine. And while this may not have led to strategic defeat, it is a sign that there is a strategic problem inside that army. A good case study is a story that people give too much attention to and is usually not that interesting: Israel and Palestine. It should be noted that in the Arab world, victory gives the government legitimacy and a defeat delegitimizes the loser. For this reason, a lot of victories are declared. The goalposts are always moved, and no matter how bad you are defeated, people are going to declare victory. If you believe them, you will not notice that often these Pyrrhic victories come at the cost of 1 to 3 death rates, sometimes 1 to 40 death rates, especially when it involves Israel versus Palestine. However, there is a much better story to be told when we are talking about the Pyrrhic defeat tactics of Hamas. During the 2014 war in Gaza, one Israeli minister proposed that Israel invade the Gaza Strip for a whole victory over Gaza, that is, to invade them and kill all the terrorists and all the militants. The expected death toll was 500 soldiers for the Israelis. This plan was rejected offhand, since the problem of Gaza was seen as too insignificant to justify 500 deaths. I must say that, in my opinion, Russia won the war in Ukraine, but it was one hell of a Pyrrhic victory. Their gravitas was demolished. Nobody takes them as seriously as before. They are a big threat, but not the big bad monster everyone thought they were. Their threatening power is no longer what it used to be. The balance of power has shifted dramatically in favor of the West. this is going to affect the world for decades to come, because this Pyrrhic defeat is going to be one of many, because more and more states are going to try to resist the Russians. Ukraine has achieved a lot more than a lot of states thought, and if the United States and other rival empires of Russia can convince the locals to fight for a Pyrrhic defeat, that's going to screw Russia over. Furthermore, a lot of their forces are now in Ukraine, so we're seeing other allies of Russia being screwed over. The first example is Armenia. They had lost the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War in 2021. However, the Russians intervened in order to make sure that the defeat was not too bad, and they kind of backed the Armenians to make sure the Azeris would not try something more. However, now with the war in Ukraine, Azerbaijan has just kind of marched in and won the third Nagorno-Karabakh war in a stunning defeat very, very quickly, and without the Russian backing, it just means that it probably means that the Azeris were just afraid of the Russians. But with the Russians out of the story because of this Pyrrhic defeat in Ukraine, there's no reason not to engage. And we might see further vassal states being invaded or being defeated because Russia is no longer there to back them up. What countries do you think might be at risk? Please comment below and tell us. Maybe we can predict the future. If you like this video, please comment, upvote, and subscribe. If you want to help further, go and watch my other videos. And if you like them as well, do the same over there. Also, please share this video and any other video you might think people might take interest in. If you want to support me further, you can buy my book on Amazon, Ancapistan by Noah Goodman. Thank you for watching, and good night.